Welcome to Asian Times TV, the cutting-edge news and analysis show that comes to you live from Princeton TV, where we look at the interaction between Asia-Pacific region and the United States and how it's impacting our daily lives and geopolitics and culture and news and foreign relations. So we have with us today a very special guest, Dr. Arturo Munoz. He's a senior political scientist at RAND Corporation, Washington, D.C. Prior to joining RAND, he had spent 29 years with the CIA in counterterrorism, counterinsurgency, as well as a counter-narcotics officer. He is a historian. He has a PhD in history from Stanford University and an MA in anthropology. And he's also an ABD in anthropology, in the sense that he was about to get another PhD. And I think the CIA snatched him up or something. So the story goes. Correct. So the story goes, yeah. So today we're going to talk about the Benghazi controversy, which is still live in the news and it's getting highly politicized. The controversy, of course, stems from the attack that took place on the 11th anniversary of 9/11 in the port city of Benghazi, which is the second largest city in Libya, which faces the Mediterranean Sea. And as you know, of course, Libya was a site of a struggle that took place where Gaddafi was deposed by freedom fighters. They were armed by American, initiative. So a lot of the events are obviously flowing from the events that took place with the disposing of Muammar Gaddafi. But on the 11th anniversary of 9/11, an attack took place on the consulate in Benghazi, and Professor Munoz is going to tell us about some of the details that he has access to, which shed light on what exactly took place during the attack. Dr. Munoz, welcome.
Well, glad to be here. The key issue is the analysis of the events. I mean, was it an armed terrorist attack principally, or was this a spontaneous reaction to the rioting in Egypt over the film, the anti-Islamic film?
Right.
I mean, that is the main controversy here, and the whole issue has become politicized, as you're saying, and I think it's important to stand back and look at this issue and analyze it not just from the point of view of Libya itself and Benghazi, but I think there's a deeper question here of the intelligence process and the relationship between intelligence and diplomacy.
Which, by the way, you're an expert in, right? I should point that out because you teach a course at Georgetown.
That is correct.
On the linkage between intelligence and some of the executive decision making that goes on, or decision making in the terms of what the State Department does vis-a-vis the various hot spots around the world, terrorist spots.
That is correct. And one of the issues we look at is politicization of intelligence, and policymakers using intelligence for their political agenda. Now, there's a whole genre of literature on this issue. And this was a huge controversy during the last administration over the intelligence leading up to the Iraq War. A lot of it proved to be false.
Right.
Now, here we are again with accusations of false intelligence again, and the question is, and in case your viewers are wondering, well, why do we keep focusing on the Benghazi timeline? Why is it so important to make these distinctions? The importance is, was the intelligence politicized? That's the underlying question here.
Okay. Now,
let's go into some of the details, and let's explore the details. Do you have another question?
No. Yeah. So just go over the timeline quickly. I believe you have the exact timeline of the events, right?
Yes. I mean, here we go. September 11th, 9:40 p.m. Libyan time. Large numbers of armed men shouting "Allahu Akbar," descend on the compound from multiple directions. The attackers lob grenades over the wall, enter the compound under a barrage of automatic weapons fire and RPGs, backed by truck-mounted artillery. What they mean there is mortars, okay? And anti-aircraft machine guns. These are heavy machine guns. A diplomatic security agent viewing the consulate security cameras, which we now have that feed from one of the security cameras. So we have a feed of the attack as it was happening.
Now the compound itself, I should say, is about 300-yard long. It's like a football field.
Correct.
And there are 3 buildings or 4 buildings, I think, within the complex itself.
That is
Building
correct.
A, B, and then the barracks.
Yes.
A, B, C, and then the barracks, right?
Yes.
Okay. And so for these militiamen to break through the gate and to get to one of the buildings, they would have used one of the arsenals, right? One of the RPGs or to break open the gate and try to break into the compound.
Which they did. They blasted a hole through it. I mean,
Right.
the reports I've seen said that they literally blasted a hole through the wall.
Okay.
All right, so continuing with this account, this summary, a diplomatic security, oh yeah, we talked about that. He hit the alarm. The diplomatic security agent hit the alarm and started shouting, attack, attack, over the loudspeaker. Phone calls were made to the embassy in Tripoli, the diplomatic security command center in Washington, the Libyan February 17 Brigade, and the nearby compound, which was the CIA compound. All these people are alerted immediately as soon as the attack happens.
Mm-hmm.
Ambassador Stevens telephoned Deputy Chief of Mission Gregory Hicks in Tripoli to tell him the consulate was under attack. About an hour and a half later, a drone arrives and the attack was still going on. This was a prolonged battle.
Wait. So the drone must have been already positioned somewhere in the Mediterranean Sea, or
The drone, I don't know exactly where the drone was positioned, but the reporting I've seen.
now, of course, drone. I mean, for our audiences, I'm sure people know what a drone is, but this is an unmanned plane,
That's correct.
which has surveillance equipment, high class, high tech surveillance equipment, which can read and assess the situation on the ground and
It
even
sends images.
images. Right.
It
Okay.
can take videos.
Right.
Now, in Pakistan, what they've done is, and not just Pakistan, and also other places, to this surveillance platform, they have added missiles. So this can either be a surveillance platform, or it can also deliver a missile.
Which has
now,
been
the
the-
ones in Tripoli were not armed.
Now,
These were only surveillance.
Now, drones, of course, is used now as an acronym. It's been added to our vocabulary as an effective means of attack on terrorist sites around the world. And of course, it's been condemned in the news, of course, and has been controversial as a way to attack high-value targets in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the AFPAC, broader AFPAC region.
That is correct.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to keep in mind that in Benghazi, speaking of the situation in Benghazi,
Right.
drone that was used was only a surveillance drone.
I see.
There was never any, you can either put a missile on it or not. It depends how you want to configure it. The counts I have seen is that this was purely a surveillance platform
Okay.
flying over the Benghazi, and it arrived there about an hour and a half, more or less,
Okay.
after the attack begun. But the attack was a prolonged attack
Right.
that some reports say lasted 7 hours.
Correct.
So the significance of this for dealing with the analytical problem that I'm raising is that we have real-time imagery, real-time intelligence of the event as it was happening, and this is fed to the command post in the United States. That's the whole point of the drone, to send these images directly to the United States, so
Right.
that we know what's happening.
So where was the breakdown in communication then, according to you, in terms of the memo, which is now obviously in the news, being talked about a lot, that Susan Rice uh, she read in the follow-up to the attack, which said that, or she stated that this was partly a result of the riots from this film, the anti-Islamic film, but leaving open the possibility that it was also a terrorist attack, potentially.
Yes, I mean, the talking points, which is the crux of the controversy.
Yeah.
They say that the best analysis at the time is that the violence in Benghazi was a spontaneous reaction influenced by the rioting in Cairo over the anti-Islamic film, and that extremists participated in that spontaneous reaction. Now, in fairness to the ambassador, she did caveat this and said this is an ongoing investigation into what happened, and they are looking at possible participation by terrorist groups, and that there will be more information forthcoming.
No, but she's a very high level official, right? So
she's ambassador to the UN,
right? So she wouldn't have herself edited or changed or tempered with what have you, the talking point memo, right?
Well, I actually don't know if she had the authority to do that. I mean, what she says is, I mean, it would have been imprudent for her to change the memo on her own, because she wanted to reflect the official position of the administration. I mean, that's her job.
Right.
So it doesn't make sense that she would alter these talking points herself.
But it seems like she's come under fire in this political environment for apparently saying something which turns out was not entirely true.
It wasn't true. Well, it wasn't true at all.
It wasn't true at all.
Those talking points are wrong. And see, that's the point. That is the point. That we now know there was no spontaneous reaction. There was no riot. We know that.
Okay.
Now the question is, and then here's where they're having all the investigations and the hearings, the closed hearings that are going on. And what's exasperating is they're closed hearings. So then the only report that we have is some congressman that attends the hearing, and he says that Petraeus said. So it's you're getting it secondhand. All right, because I haven't seen any of the transcripts of the closed hearings, because they're closed, all right, by definition. So then all we get is drips and drabs, and then the Republican congressmen, have their version of it, and the Democrats have their version of it. So the whole issue has become politicized. But the question is, and it's a valid intelligence question, and it's a very serious intelligence question for an assessment of how well our intelligence process works, and all the reforms that we've had. After 9/11, we had the 9/11 Commission. After the intelligence fiasco, excuse me, of the Iraq War, we had more commissions. We've had reforms. We've had layers of new intelligence bureaucracy have been added. We have a whole process of intelligence reform. And then at the end of the day, we can't even tell if there's a riot in a particular country or not. And a riot is not a clandestine act. Right. I mean, we're not talking about the secret nuclear capabilities of a country or the secret plans and intentions of a terrorist cell that's very hard to penetrate. We're talking about a riot. This is the public act. And we can't even agree if a riot even took place.
So I think the key question that we're trying to get at was, you said there was 7 hours the attack took place.
Yeah, approximately. That's what I've read.
And drones apparently were doing surveillance starting at about an hour and a half or so.
Correct.
You said? Right. So we would have footage or live imagery of the attack, and certainly in the the news stories are talking about how the men who were under attack, the men who were protecting Ambassador Stevens, call for help, but apparently they did not get a response back.
No, well, what I have read is they did get a response from the CIA compound that's about a mile and a half away, and they did send some. The only people that showed up to help, by the way, as far as I know, was the CIA. And they were down the road, and they came up in a vehicle.
I see.
They actually they tried to find Ambassador Stevens. They couldn't find him. And they actually rescued the people that were in the consulate, the ones that were still alive.
But did they request like additional, force by air, which was not sent or was declined or was seen as too kind of sensitive?
Well, that's a separate issue. I mean, now this question that you've asked is a different part of the problem, which is why was the decision not made to send a rescue force from the assets that we have in the Mediterranean Sea, for example? Mm-hmm. We have a base in Sicily. We have bases in the area. We have warships in the area.
Right.
Now, why was not the order given immediately to send some kind of response? And the response, there are different options here. Mm-hmm. There's different possibilities. One is a jet, fighter, that could have been there. That would have got there the quickest. And they could have, strafed or bombed around the consulate. Why was that not done? And then a regular military assault force. One thing that should be mentioned here, it's not the job of the CIA to provide physical security for U.S. diplomatic installations. Mm-hmm. That's not their job, because I've seen that speculation in the media. Mm-hmm. Well, there was an arrangement that the CIA was supposed to provide security to the consulate in Benghazi. I have read that. Mm-hmm. To me, it doesn't make any sense, because that's not the job of the CIA. And if they had that kind of arrangement, it would be the first time in diplomatic history.
Right, and Darrell Issa, when he
has its own mechanisms for providing security to official U.S. installations.
Right, and Darrell Issa, the congressman from California, when he released the 160-page sort of emails and what was at the time classified information, but unclassified, showed a long trail of requests, I guess, that were sent by the consulate to beef up security, and requests for security were made repeatedly, given the environment in Benghazi on the ground was getting, difficult. Ambassador of another country had been killed, I think.
No, the British ambassador left.
Correct.
But there were attacks. Yes, I've seen that reporting. There was a series of terrorist attacks in the area, and we know that there was a series of requests to increase security in Benghazi, and they were all turned down.
Right. Okay.
That's what I've read. So that's another question. But see, there's two pieces to it. One is, why was the decision made not to strengthen the security of Benghazi before the attack? That's one issue. The other issue is, after the attack happened, why was there no decision to send a rescue assault force from our military assets that are in the Mediterranean area?
Okay.
I mean, is the answer that they wouldn't have got there in time? But the point is, when the attack first happened, nobody knew how long it was going to last. Right? So, so how can you assume they wouldn't have got there in time if you don't know how long it's going to last?
So, So is it the case then that potentially, again, this is speculative, there's also news stories that there were other CIA operatives or operations or missions potentially on the ground that were active at the time, and those would have been jeopardized if America sort of retaliates full scale.
I have read that, and it doesn't make any sense to me at all.
Okay.
I don't see any relationship between a rescue mission to protect the U.S. personnel that are being attacked in the consulate in Benghazi and CIA intelligence collection activities in the area. I don't see any relationship at all. I don't see why one would have jeopardized the other.
Okay, but are you suggesting that there were possibly other Operation CIA sort of agency-related things that were going on the ground?
Well, of course, I assume.
Yeah.
I don't know that for a fact.
Was that one of the reasons then, you wouldn't necessarily, carry out a sort of an aerial mission, to attack the attackers, the terrorists in this case, who were attacking the consulate?
Okay, I understand your question, but to me, and I've seen that in the press. I know it's an issue, but to me it doesn't make any sense because I don't see any relationship between CIA intelligence collection activities in that area and the need to send in an assault force to rescue diplomats that are under attack. I just don't see I don't see how one. Let me add to that.
Right.
In Afghanistan, I assume, again, I don't want to be accused of, overstepping my bounds, but I just assume that there's all kinds of CIA intelligence collection activities in Afghanistan. I hope so. That's their job. That's why they're created.
Right.
Now, they also have airstrikes in Afghanistan. They have airstrikes all the time. They have combat all the time. And I don't see how the airstrikes and the battles that are taking place in Afghanistan have any impact at all on CIA intelligence collection activities. I don't know why people want to make that connection.
Okay, got it. That's an excellent point. I think that is a point that has to be brought up. But is there sort of a general silence? Of course, it's going to take a long investigation to actually figure out what happened here because we don't know. Nobody seems to know. But generally, of course, with an event like this, you have to be very careful about what it is you release, what it is you publicly say, as opposed to, just willy-nilly releasing documents, intelligence information that may jeopardize other agency-related things that may be going on there on the ground.
Well, sure, of course. You always want to analyze the unintended consequences of information you release. Right. Sure. Right. And yeah, you got to be careful. But to me, that is not even the main point. I mean, the main point, I actually think that there's a lot of consensus on what happened. I mean, everybody now says it was a terrorist attack. And we know how it happened. We know the weapons they used. I mean, we know a lot. We got pictures of it. Right. We got pictures of it that were taken as it was happening. That's not the issue. The issue is, if we have all this information about the terrorist attack, and this is not a big mystery, this is not an intelligence question. I mean, it's to me, it's fairly clear. The issue is, why then did Ambassador Rice, in September 16th, that's 5 days after, come out and say that this was a spontaneous reaction to the events in Egypt about the Islamic film? And to be fair to Ambassador Rice, there was also a spokesman, what's his name here? The press secretary, Jay Carney. On the 18th of September. That's 2 days after the ambassador. And he said, I'm saying that based on information that we have, our initial information, etc., we saw no evidence to back up claims by others that this was a pre-planned or premeditated attack. That we saw evidence that was sparked by the reaction to the video. So he's again repeating the video explanation 2 days after Ambassador Rice. So the point here is, it really isn't an individual that's at the center of the issue. It's the administration that they're promoting the spontaneous reaction interpretation days after we knew that it wasn't. And that is what people are asking. Well, why? And now they say, and Ambassador Rice says, Well, I'm just going by the talking points prepared by the CIA. And then here is the thing that's unknown. This is what the hearings have not clarified. Because I have heard, and again, this is all hearsay. I mean, it's kind of exasperating. We're basing this whole conversation on hearsay and second and third accounts. But what I have heard in the media is that the original talking points prepared by the intelligence community, and here I wouldn't say CIA, I would say intelligence community, because these talking points are coordinated. So I would say the coordinated intelligence community talking points originally did say it was a terrorist attack. And then that was edited out. And I'm not talking about the term Al-Qaeda. I'm not talking about whether or not we're going to call them extremists or we're going to call them Al-Qaeda. I'm talking about the reason for the violence, you know, which is the more basic question. And that what I have heard is that the intelligence community had talking points that said this was a terrorist attack.
Right.
No, the question is who changed it? That's the question.
Right. And I guess we're going to find out.
Changed it to the spontaneous reaction thing. Yeah. Who did that? That's what we don't know.
Right. And I guess we're going to find that out, you know, as the investigation unfolds. Now, to our credit, Asian Times TV here at Princeton, I did an interview right after, a day or 2 days after, with Pepe Escobar of Asia Times,
right,
who had been there in Benghazi on the ground and said it was a terrorist attack. You know, but this is, of course, weeks before, and he said it was Al-Qaeda. It was, Al-Qaeda-related affiliated groups. This is weeks before it then came publicly known that, you know, it was a terrorist attack.
Well, yes. I mean, that's part of the problem, that all the serious evidence, all the serious analysts knew instantly this is a terrorist attack. And the problem and then, now you may say, well, who cares? I mean, why is it so troubling that the administration continued long afterwards to talk about the film and the spontaneous reaction? I mean, what is the import of that? You know, seriously, I mean, it's just an intelligence mistake. You know, intelligence mistakes happen all the time. They certainly happened under the Bush administration. So this is just an intelligence mistake. But here is the reason why people are taking this in such a negative light. Because the speculation is, and it's very harmful speculation, that the reason for this narrative about the spontaneous attack had to do with politics, had to do with the presidential campaign, had to do with the narrative that Obama as a candidate was promoting, that Al-Qaeda was defeated, that the counterterrorism policies that he had implemented were working. And then you have this event in Libya. Well, that kind of contradicts that political narrative. Now that's the speculation. That's the speculation, but it's really very harmful speculation if it's not resolved.
Right.
And the thing is, to date, I have not seen the intelligence community take responsibility for the talking points that said that this was a spontaneous reaction to the film in which extremists participated. In other words, the September 16th and the September 18th statements by administration officials, you know, which they say this is based on intelligence community talking points. I have not seen the intelligence community formally say, yes, this is our talking points. This is what we told the administration. If that's the case, then all that political speculation about the campaign and Obama's narrative and all that stuff that I said previously, then that all becomes irrelevant. Okay. Then the question becomes, how could the intelligence community get it so wrong?
Okay, on that potent and seminal point, unfortunately we're out of time, and we'll have to have you back on again to talk about this in more detail as the story unfolds, as the investigation continues on. Thank you, Dr. Munoz, for giving us your precious time, and tune in again for another show on Asian Times TV, looking at the cutting edge issues in the Asia Pacific region. Thank you very much.